Humorous jab against the surplus of superhero films at the Oscars, and Dan Gilroy told Independent Spirit Awards attendees that they have survived against a tsunami of superhero films. Director James Gunn had a lot to say on the matter, stating that what bothers me slightly is that many people assume because you make big films that you put less love, care, and thought into them than people do who make independent films or who make what are considered more serious Hollywood films. I find there are plenty of people everywhere making movies for a buck or to feed their own vanity. And then there are people who do what they do because they love storytelling, they love cinema, and they want to add back to the world some of the same magic they've taken from the works of others. If you think people who make superhero movies are dumb, come out and say we're dumb. But if you, as an independent filmmaker or a serious filmmaker, think you put more love into your characters than the Russo Brothers do Captain America, or Joss Whedon does the Hulk, or I do a talking raccoon, you are simply mistaken. Amy Rose, what do you think of Gunn's comments?
I read this, I'm just like, James Gunn drops mic, you know, it's just like so on the point. Gunn is an amazing filmmaker, and this was a much longer quote for the sake of not killing Miss Ashley over there. He also went on to say that, you know, the Jack Black comment didn't offend him and he thought it was funny, and that he's, you know, directed indie films and gory films and this, and that that's my heart right there, what he's describing. Indie films and mainstream superhero, all that. That's my heart. I'm split into two. And so I really understand the bad rap that superhero films get, in the sense that they have these big budgets. They have so many more things accessible to them. They have huge teams, production, sound stages, everything at, just a blink of an eye. It's just a very different method. With indie films, with lower budget films, you have to be more creative in the confines. But it doesn't mean that these big budget films can't also be really creative. So I get what he's saying. Dan Gilroy, Nightcrawler is one of my favorite films of last year, so it deserves all the love. He also went on to kind of jab Rene Russo, saying, well, your wife was in 2 superhero films, so this is silly. But I just think, we are in an age of superhero films. We are, and because it's much more of a surplus in the industry, people of course have their remarks to say and their criticism in this, but it's like any other genre. It's accessible to you if you want it. If you want to see the indie films, Birdman just won Best Picture. That's an independent film. So we have it all. For me as a filmmaker, I get it all, and that excites me so much. And as Shep, I'm sure you can relate, as an indie filmmaker, you have to really get creative and just work with, less budget. So I really admire indie filmmakers. I also admire this, but some big budget pictures are just, met Bay in more recent years. Some of his earlier I loved, but he does give these huge budgets kind of a bad name sometimes, because it isn't filled with heart or depth or anything that Guardians was. Guardians was an amazing film. And so these superhero films can be just good films, not just superhero films. So I think that's a shift that's happening. But I thought this was very, very humorous. Christian, what did you think?
There is a reason there are a lot of superhero films, because filmmakers are making good movies.
Exactly.
That's why. Audiences are going to see good movies. And I think sometimes it's very hipster to say, well, I don't want to be associated. I don't like the big budget movies because they're big budget and you can't make a good movie. It's got to be watched the smaller films. It's not the case. So there are a lot of great small. Look, Nightcrawler was one of my favorites of the year last year. Great movie. But to say that, it's irresponsible. It's super irresponsible to say, because it's just like pitting one against the other. There's another reason why these superhero films are so helpful. Is like I said the other day, when you do a movie like The Avengers, it allows you to be able to throw in some money to say, hey, I'm going to make Much Ado About Nothing now. Joss Whedon wants to make that. He gets to make a smaller film like that. There's a lot of different opportunities now that come because of these big budget movies, and they're casting these Oscar winners. Even like you look something like Star Wars, not superhero, but in the big picture, Felicity Jones, Oscar winning. They're going after big talent because they want to make big movies. They want to do this. It's about making quality movies, not just about shoving popcorn in your face. There are movies that still do that, obviously. Michael Bay. But other than that, it's a different time we live in now. It's not just it's shtick to hate on it.
Ellis?
There's crappy independent films too. Like, let's not think, and every movie that's made on a budget isn't good or nominated for an Oscar. So I can see it both ways. But look, this happens in every walk of life you get to. If you go to sports, people hate the Yankees for a reason, because they're able to spend so much money on a team every year. However, once you get to the playoffs, they're kind of more interesting when the Yankees are playing. And I hate the Yankees, but I'm willing to admit that it's like, oh, cool, man, that makes that ups the drama a little bit. When it comes to films, yes, Michael Bay makes terrible movies, but James Gunn made a great movie. And so I think that as a moviegoer, it really doesn't matter because you're paying pretty much the same amount per ticket, regardless of what film you're going to see. Maybe you got to shell out a couple extra bucks if it's in 3D. Right, but the other point I'll make is that, like you said, Amy Rose, I like the fact that you get both kinds, and that when you get to the end of the summer, I have a little bit of superhero movie fatigue, and I'm glad that we start to get Oscar films. And now I'm in that point where, okay, good, the Oscars are over with, we got done with the run of the great independent films. Now let's get some big budget stuff. I'm so ready to see Fast 7 right now. Because I'm sick of seeing all the smaller movies. So it's a nice cycle, I think. And to Christian's point, I think that these movies can have a huge impact, the big budget ones, because you look at like what Chris Evans and what Chris Pratt did, where it's like, I'm going to go visit a kid who's sick in a hospital right now, dressed as Captain America or dressed as Star-Lord. Nobody is dressing up as Jake Gyllenhaal from Nightcrawler to go say hi to a kid, So I think
not.
They probably are, actually.
As Nightcrawler from the X-Men. That's what they're doing.
Should I?
I come from a dark time. I remember, I don't know, you kids might not remember this, when there were no superhero movies to complain about. When X-Men was like, oh my God, they're making an X-Men movie? Because they made Blade and that made money. The superhero films were laughed at unless it was Superman or Batman. No one wanted to touch it. It seemed like it was a plague. So we live in a time now where the superhero genre is making a ton of money. And I've heard similar complaints on different shows over the past few decades about action films or big budget whatever films or the explosion films or whatnot. Now superheroes are taking over that area of big budget action films. That's what they are now. Big budget action films are superhero films. Jack Black was going to be Green Lantern. Don't forget about Robert Smigel's take on Green Lantern. It was going to be a comedy Green Lantern with Jack Black running around with a ring. I read the script, it was funny. It might have been better than the Green Lantern that they actually made. Dan Gilroy wrote Superman Lives, a draft of Superman Lives. He did an incredible job. He's very passionate. I interviewed him for my film.
That's amazing. All
about Superman, a superhero film. He's not anti-superhero. I think when you're at the Independent Spirit Awards, it just right there, it's like, it's the reverse of Hollywood. It's people can show up in a t-shirt and be like, yeah, I'm a hipster or whatever. It's not like glamorous and like taking photos and stuff. It's more like, I made this with some gum and a toothpick. I didn't even shoot and film. I shot it on my iPhone. So it's like to be a little bit, all those big budget films. I think the tsunami of superhero films can be looked at in one way or the other. It's like, hey, look, we're still making other types of films is what my walk away. I didn't have to get so up in arms, but I respect what James Gunn said because it had to be said. So you throw a gauntlet down, here's the other side of the gauntlet. But what's real is what's in the middle of that. So.
Yeah, I think you pegged it with playing to the audience because the Indie Spirit Award, it is a very different vibe and it's not so black and white and it's exciting. I mean, I go to superhero films, Fast 7, all of those, to be entertained and thrilled and have a great time. I go to indie films to be inspired. I want it all. So let's just coexist.
We got it all.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.